In recent weeks, former U.S. President Donald Trump has made a series of decisions that have sparked significant reactions both domestically and internationally. His latest announcements regarding economic policies, immigration, and foreign relations have once again placed him at the center of political discussions. One of the most controversial measures has been his stance on trade tariffs. Trump has proposed new tariffs on imports from several countries, arguing that they are necessary to protect American industries. Critics, however, warn that these tariffs could lead to retaliatory actions from affected nations, potentially sparking a trade war. Economists have expressed concerns about the impact on global markets, with some predicting increased prices for American consumers and disruptions in supply chains. Regarding immigration, Trump has reaffirmed his commitment to stricter border policies. He has pledged to reinforce border security measures, including increasing funding for the construction of physical barriers and intensifying deportation efforts. Supporters argue that these measures are crucial for national security and protecting American jobs, while opponents accuse him of promoting policies that harm immigrant communities and violate human rights. In foreign policy, Trump's recent remarks about international alliances have raised eyebrows among global leaders. His criticism of NATO's funding structure and his calls for European nations to increase their defense spending have created tensions with long-standing allies. Meanwhile, his approach to diplomatic relations with countries like China and Russia remains a topic of intense debate, with some praising his assertiveness and others warning of potential diplomatic fallout. The reactions to Trump's decisions have been swift and varied. Political allies have largely backed his actions, emphasizing the need for strong leadership and America First policies. However, opponents, including Democratic leaders and international figures, have condemned his approach, describing it as isolationist and potentially damaging to global stability. As Trump continues to shape his political narrative, the consequences of his decisions will likely have long-lasting effects on both domestic and international affairs. The coming weeks will be crucial in determining how these policies unfold and how they are received by the American public and the global community. The economic repercussions of Trump's recent decisions are already beginning to show. Stock markets have experienced fluctuations in response to concerns over trade tensions and potential retaliatory measures from major economic partners. Some analysts warn that prolonged uncertainty could impact business confidence and investment, while Trump and his supporters argue that these moves will ultimately strengthen the U.S. economy by reducing dependency on foreign goods and encouraging domestic production. In the political landscape, Trump's actions have intensified the divide between Republicans and Democrats. His firm stance on economic protectionism and immigration has rallied his conservative base, with many supporters viewing him as a leader who prioritizes American interests over global pressures. On the other hand, Democratic lawmakers and progressive activists have launched strong criticisms, accusing him of pursuing policies that could harm working-class families and weaken America's standing on the world stage. One of the most heated debates revolves around Trump's continued efforts to challenge policies implemented under previous administrations. He has once again pushed for the rollback of environmental regulations, arguing that they hinder business growth. Environmental groups and climate advocates, however, warn that such deregulation could have serious long-term consequences for sustainability and public health. Legal battles over these rollbacks are expected to escalate in the coming months. Another major area of concern is Trump's handling of international relations. His recent statements regarding NATO and military alliances have led to diplomatic unease. European leaders have expressed frustration over what they perceive as a shift away from traditional U.S. commitments to global security cooperation. Meanwhile, tensions with China over trade and technological competition continue to escalate, with both sides imposing new restrictions and countermeasures. Domestically, Trump's policies on law enforcement and public order have also reignited debates on civil rights and governance. His calls for tougher policing measures and expanded surveillance powers have received mixed reactions. Law and order advocates praise these steps as necessary for national security, while civil liberties organizations argue that they could lead to overreach and abuses of power. Despite criticism, Trump remains steadfast in his approach, often using social media and public rallies to communicate directly with his supporters. His rhetoric continues to focus on themes of nationalism, economic independence, and opposition to what he describes as an overreaching federal bureaucracy. This strategy has been effective in mobilizing his political base but has also fueled polarization within the country. Looking ahead, the impact of Trump's decisions will depend on how they translate into tangible outcomes for the American people. Key economic indicators, diplomatic developments, and upcoming legislative battles will play a significant role in shaping public perception. With elections on the horizon, both Trump's supporters and opponents are gearing up for an intense political showdown, making it clear that his influence on U.S. politics is far from over. As the political landscape continues to evolve, Trump's decisions are shaping not only the immediate future of the United States but also the broader trajectory of global affairs. His policies have triggered a wave of responses from business leaders, international allies, and everyday citizens, all of whom are assessing the long-term consequences of his leadership. One of the most pressing concerns remains the state of the economy. While Trump insists that his trade policies will ultimately benefit American workers, industries dependent on global trade are already feeling the pressure. Agricultural sectors, for example, have faced disruptions due to retaliatory tariffs from foreign governments. Farmers in the Midwest, a key voter base for Trump, have expressed mixed reactions, some standing by him in hopes of future relief, while others worry about financial instability. The manufacturing sector has also seen shifts, with some companies adjusting their supply chains to navigate the uncertainty caused by new trade restrictions. In the tech industry, Trump's stance on China has led to increased scrutiny over technological exports and intellectual property rights. Restrictions on Chinese companies have escalated tensions between the two nations, affecting industries from semiconductor manufacturing to artificial intelligence research. While Trump argues that these measures protect American innovation, critics warn that they could stifle collaboration and limit U.S. access to critical technological advancements. Socially, Trump's policies continue to drive debates on issues such as healthcare, education, and workers' rights. His push to reduce government regulations has extended to healthcare policies, where his administration has sought to limit federal oversight on insurance markets. Supporters claim that deregulation increases competition and lowers costs, but opponents argue that it could leave millions of Americans without adequate coverage. Similarly, proposed budget cuts to education programs have sparked backlash from educators and parents, who fear that reduced funding could negatively impact public schools and accessibility to higher education. Internationally, reactions to Trump's latest decisions have varied widely. In Europe, leaders have voiced concerns over his unpredictable diplomatic approach, particularly regarding NATO commitments and trade partnerships. Some European nations have taken steps to reduce their economic reliance on the U.S., forging stronger trade ties with other global powers. In contrast, some countries, particularly those with conservative leadership, have expressed support for Trump's nationalist policies, viewing them as a model for their own governance strategies. Amid the controversy, Trump's base remains steadfast. His rallies continue to draw large crowds, with supporters echoing his messages of economic protectionism, border security, and resistance to what he calls establishment politics. Many view him as a leader willing to challenge political norms in favor of policies that prioritize American sovereignty. However, opposition movements have also intensified, with activists and political figures organizing against his policies on multiple fronts. As Trump moves forward with his agenda, the political climate in the United States remains highly polarized. The next few months will be crucial in determining whether his decisions translate into lasting policy successes or fuel further division. With upcoming elections and legislative battles ahead, the nation, and the world, will be watching closely to see how his leadership continues to shape the course of history. Remember, subscribe to the channel if you love Donald Trump.